Okay, then let's actually kick it off. Welcome. I'm very happy to have you guys all here. Very excited also to tell you about object-centered process mining, also known as OCPM. And the goal of today is to really show you that object-centric process mining is not just a new development area, but it's actually the future of process mining. So what I want to achieve today as well is I want to give you those insights into what is OCPM exactly, and more importantly, how can it actually transform your business and bring it to the next level. Today we have multiple people here, multiple industries. Really happy to have you. I see colleagues, I see customers, I even see some friends, but I also see people that I don't know. So to actually kick it off, we will start with a short introduction of who am I and what is Apolix. After that, I want to explain to you the difference between what is that old school process mining and what is OCPM then. I also will show that in the demo where you can actually see the value of OCPM. But after that, I actually want to take one step back and talk about the future stability with OCPM and how it can actually bring you to that next level. So let's kick it off. I'm Quincy. I'm 23 years old and I work at Apolix. I have a background in econometrics. I graduated there in the beginning of 2023, so not that long ago. And right now I am working as a process intelligence manager at Apolix. I've been here for almost 2 years now. As a process intelligence manager, I am responsible for the end-to-end delivery of all projects within Apolix. So that means that when my salesperson comes to me with a new customer, we sit together, we discuss what that customer needs and where the customer's pains are in their process, and we make sure that everything that has been discussed will be delivered end-to-end. Sounds very technical, but it's not that technical as you can expect. But during the course of the webinar, you'll also see how that process mining is 20% technical and actually 80% understanding the business and having those conversations. What's really interesting about me is that I love deep diving into new development areas, meaning that that actually also brought me to OCPM. Because when I was looking into the process mining area, which is already a pretty new area in itself within this data world that we right now live in, when I heard about OCPM last year, September, it immediately caught my attention. It was presented as a new way of looking at processes where you can take everything into account. I know there are a lot of development areas, but the reason why OCPM really caught my interest is because I immediately realized the value of it. I immediately noticed that, okay, if you actually want to look at your process and if you actually want to improve your business, you need to look at the full picture. You cannot only take one part and then deep dive into it. So today I also want to take you through that journey that I myself went through and guide you into what is OCPM and how can it bring that value. During the webinar, there's a possibility to ask questions. So I want to ask you all if you can put your questions in the questions and answer option above or in the chat. However, I will be answering the questions in the end. I'll try to make it work in between, depending on the time, but definitely in the end, I'll make sure that there's enough time to answer the questions that you have. But so that you don't forget them, please already put them in the chat so that afterwards I can see them all. As said before, I am working at Apolix, and we are a consulting organization that helps you grow your revenue and save your costs through data-driven process improvement. That means that we are actually connecting to your system and extracting all that data out of your system to map and also understand the process. And with this, we want to actually achieve process excellence. That means that we want to improve your processes, but we also want to drive change within your company to make sure that those improvements are actually realized. To drive change, however, you need more than technical excellence. It's always nice if people all know all the technicals ins and outs, but most importantly, besides the technical excellence, we need to make sure that our strategy is aligned with the strategy behind what you want to achieve, and that we need to understand how to leverage the tool to actually bring you that value. So that is where we as a consultancy come in. But enough about me, enough about Apolix. Let's actually kick it off. So today I already started about talking about my day, how It didn't start off that good because all my trains were delayed. And the same process happens that if I ask you about your day, you just don't tell me what you had for breakfast. If I ask someone about their day, I want to have the full picture, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The same thing happens that if I ask you about your pain in your company, I don't expect you to only point me towards one process, to only point me towards one department. It would be a shame, though, if you have that one department that always messes things up for you. But in general, what we see is that pains are spread over the whole company. Pains are spread across all departments. Same thing for inefficiencies. And to actually understand that full picture and to actually understand what is that inefficiency and where in my company does it happen, we need to look at the true fabric of processes. And let's do that with a simple example. Let's look at my car. So when I was 17, I graduated from high school and my parents decided to buy me a car. I know, a very lucky girl, very happy. But man, that was a journey because the car that my parents wanted for me, it needed some tweaks here and there. So they went to the dealer, they said, hey, I want this car, but I need to have tweaks A, B, and C. Unfortunately, that car was not available. So the dealer actually needed to call the manufacturer and say, hey, right now I have an order here, and for that order, I need you to put tweaks A, B, and C on that. So the manufacturer said, okay, that's fine. We can do that for you. It's all okay. Of course, for the manufacturer to actually apply all those tweaks, he needs to order his parts because knowing me and also knowing my parents, we want to have a good car. So everything that can be added on top of it, we will add it on top of that. Unfortunately, though, one of the materials for those tweaks was not available. So what happened to actually order that material and make sure it was there on time? We already had a delay of 5 days. Material was not available. They had to order it. It had to arrive. So the delivery was 5 days delayed. You think, okay, 5 days, that's manageable. Not that bad. What happened though is that these 5 days for the manufacturer, those 5 days were exactly the point in time where we had a very big project going on. And me, with my car, yeah, that was not a priority. The big project was a priority. So because it was already delayed by 5 days due to the materials, and due to the big project, we were not only looking at a 5-day delay, no, we had a 25-day delay. So after 25 days, and I also think around 25 calls, we finally got the car a month late. And those 25 calls, because we were very persistent, in those 25 calls, we finally figured out what was happening. But normally, when something is delayed, you don't have these insights. You need to do a lot of effort, a lot of manual effort to understand what is happening and why is it happening. So just imagine, only because one thing happened, car parts that were actually delivered late, we saw a whole domino effect occurring, where the first zone was that car part that was delivered late, and due to that first zone falling, everything tumbled. Inventory was not updated, production needed to be rescheduled due to more priority projects, all the way to the end, to me being unhappy. This end-to-end vision, what we have here, all the way from purchasing something to delivering it to your final customer, that's something that's very difficult to actually achieve. This holistic end-to-end vision is something that's right now not possible with the traditional way of process mining. With traditional process mining, we're looking from a very particular perspective. So me as a customer, I'm looking for my customer perspective. The only thing I see is, okay, I ordered something, it's being delivered late, and I'm not happy. I will try to figure out what's happening why my delivery is being late, but like I said before, it takes a lot of manual effort to actually get there. But the same thing actually happens at the other side of the supply chain. Car parts are being purchased and are being delivered late. Of course, for the purchasing department, it's annoying because they also have their own schedules, they have their own way of working, but because they're only looking from their perspective, they don't realize the impact it has throughout their whole business. Of course, they assess what's happening within their purchasing department and they rearrange their own planning. But everything that happens after purchasing, so the whole production part, the whole actually delivering it to the customer part, they have no insights into that. And they also have no idea what the effect is of their delay. This is right now what's actually the reality of process mining today. We know that the true fabric of processes is that they do not happen in isolation. As illustrated before, everything is connected, so we should also look at the picture of everything being connected. The reality in process mining today, however, is that analyzing everything in isolation makes it very challenging to move the needle on a higher level company goal, and that we can actually look at the higher level, look at the bigger picture, and also assess that bigger picture. With traditional process mining, we're limiting ourselves by only looking at one specific perspective without actually realizing, okay, but what influences my perspective? And even more importantly, how does my perspective influences everything around me? So from here onwards, I also want to make sure, and let's also agree upon this, that all departments of your organization, they work together. It's a big machine and we need to look at that big machine. Every department, every process, even every person is only a gear in that machine. But to look at the full picture, we need to look at all the gears. Classic process mining only captures a fraction of that part. With classic process mining, we take one of those gears, we take it out, and we want to analyze it on its own. Don't get me wrong, it's still very valuable. You will still get that value out of here, but you will also miss a lot of important information because you will not see how that gear is influencing the machine, which is one of the most important parts if you want to take your business to a next level. So now that we have assessed the problem and have assessed the actual difference between the traditional way of process mining and OCPM, how do we actually improve processes? For me personally, the on-time delivery of my own car I was not happy with that. So let's deep dive into this example further and actually see, okay, what can we do from a holistic point of view to actually improve that? Allow me to switch my screen and share my other screen. Quick check, is it still visible? Okay, amazing. So let's look at the process. Let's look at the supply chain. With traditional process mining, we can still achieve what we see here. We can look at a sales order. So a sales order is being created, I want to order a car. The company that I order a car at is creating that sales order. They need to create the delivery. And of course, I need to pay. So they create a customer invoice for me to pay. Everything that happens for the sales order, I can see as well. I can see if there were blocks happening for the sales order. I can see changes happening to the sales order. I can even see if certain activity steps have been skipped for this specific sales order, but that's about it. And like I said before, don't get me wrong, this is still very, very valuable because even for my sales order on its own, a lot of things can go wrong that you want to assess. But we want to take it to the next level because I know that there are a lot of aspects that actually influence my sales order as well. Everything that is connected to my sales order, I want to analyze that as well. But right now with object-centric process mining, that's unfortunately not possible. With traditional process mining, that's unfortunately not possible. With object-centric, however, I have the possibility to right now connect it to the next step. I have the possibility to connect my sales order to everything it influences, where the first step is looking at the delivery. So from my sales order, I can right now actually extend my view, extend my perspective by adding the delivery to it. I see once the delivery is created, it's actually being picked from the warehouse. It's being sent to me. And of course, I need to pay for it. So they also send me that invoice. Right now, since like before, how I had the possibility to investigate my sales order, I have the same possibility to investigate my deliveries now as well. So if I look at my deliveries, I see my first inefficiency happening, my first inefficiency that triggers me. I see that when they are looking for that specific item in the warehouse, after an hour of looking for it, they cannot find it. And because they cannot find it, a lot of things need to happen. They may need to order it, they may need to even produce it. But all in all, what I see is that it results in a delay of 5 days. Normally, when this activity here wouldn't happen, it would take around 70 days to actually send it to the customer. And right now, because it isn't available, and believe me, I know how that can be, it takes me 5 days extra to actually deliver it to my customer. 5 days for me to deliver late. And this is only one inefficiency. Let's actually now see, okay, how can we solve this? For me, and I know I'm not the only one, I would like to actually make sure that this process step is redundant. I want to have an overview of all my materials so that I know beforehand if something is available or not, instead of only when actually picking the material, that I only then figure out, oh, it's missing. And for that, to get that overview, I want to bring you to the next view. This view shows me the end-to-end lead times of all the materials in my warehouse. I can see the total number of materials. I see that all my materials over the past 5 months have delivered around 780 million euros. But I also see that out of those 780 million euros, 500 million euros was actually delivered late. This holistic overview, this end-to-end overview of the full supply chain was not something that was possible before, because we all know supply chain consists of a lot of different levels. We have multiple departments included in here. And since all those departments are looking from their own perspective, we could not combine it. Now with OCPM, we can combine it. And therefore, we can also actually assess the true nature of a supply chain. But let's take it again a step back. We want to improve our on-time delivery. I see that around 500 million euros of my sales order are being delivered late. I, of course, want to prioritize because I cannot tackle 10,000 materials all at once. So I'm going to prioritize this. I want to see, okay, which of my materials has the highest impact? With a simple click, I can order it. And I see, okay, my braking system, it's being often delivered late and it has a high impact. My supply chain network complexity is low. I am also not a supply chain expert. So for me, that triggers me as well. Okay, it has a high impact, it's a low complexity, so I can actually focus on it. Clicking on my braking system, I'm also allowed to actually deep dive into this one level more detailed. Under here, I can see the whole supply chain flow of what is needed to actually produce my braking system. I see I need a brake disc, I need a shim, I need a lot more to actually produce this. But all of these materials here have their own process as well. They either need to be purchased, they need to be manufactured, both is possible. So to analyze my braking system and to analyze, okay, how to make sure I can get this material on time, I need to analyze every stream. And doing this part by part is very difficult, but fortunately, within Celonis, I have a very nice table that actually shows me the end-to-end lead time of each of these pods. Each of my submaterials has a path here where I can assess not only the end-to-end lead time of the part itself, I can also see the sum of late replenishment orders value, which means that, okay, which of these submaterials was actually delivered late in the last year or produced late in the last year. And with this, I can prioritize, okay, which submaterial do I want to focus on to make sure that my end material, my braking system, is going to be delivered on time. So I see that, for example, my slide pin, for me to get it delivered, is around 50 days. I also see that it's often being delivered late. It has the highest value, which means it has the biggest impact when it's actually being delivered late. I can again deep dive a step further. And what I then see here this view here allows me to actually, on every level in the supply chain, deep dive, okay, where is it going wrong? What is going wrong? And more importantly, how can I fix it? The first thing that I already see is that the planned purchasing lead time, meaning the planned time of delivery, the planned time before it's being delivered to me in my system, is around 50 days. If I look at my data, however, I see that the actual average purchasing lead time is around 85 days. This deviation is highly likely to cause stock out, because if I assume if I order it now, it's going to come in 50 days, but it actually only comes in 85 days, I will not get my material on time, I will not make my braking system on time, and not only me, but another car gets delayed because something was not available. The beautiful thing about this is that we can immediately take action, because right now we have this insight, but we also want to do something with it. We actually want to improve it. As Celonis has an amazing automation built in, where I can actually say, okay, review the safety stock, because we need to actually up it. I'm going to select the person responsible for this, ask him to review it again, so that he can update it. But more importantly, not only the safety stock was missing, I also saw that the whole purchasing lead time was deviating. So I can also immediately notify the right department for the purchasing lead time, ask them to update it in the system so that for future instances, we are looking at the actual data and not at something that is unreal, something that was discussed initially, but is unfortunately not happening in reality. This is the full view of how one material consists out of multiple layers, and how we actually find the root cause of why my final material is being late just because one subpart of that material had wrong information. Moving on, or moving actually back to the slide. So allow me to again share my slides. Let's recap on this. With what we did before is we viewed processes occurring in isolation. We saw all processes as something separate, as an up-downstream process step without any interdependencies across the whole business. This actually, here we limited ourselves because those interdependencies, that's exactly where we often see it going wrong. Right now, with the new way of process mining, with the object-centric way of process mining, we are enabling ourselves to actually analyze processes as how they truly run. They run in parallel with intersections and dependencies upstream and downstream, and that allows us to actually take a step back and look at the full picture of processes instead of only looking at it part by part. Because we all know the processes are separate, but between those processes and within those processes, we have multiple departments, multiple people, and even multiple systems that are also playing a role in this whole enterprise view. And with this separate view, with the traditional view, we are not allowing ourselves to actually take that into account. But good news, OCPM does allow it to take it into account. Like I said before, I want to take a step back and actually look at the bigger picture of OCPM. Because the end-to-end view that we've talked about and that we have showcased is not the only advantage that we are right now having with OCPM. It's amazing that we right now have an opportunity to actually get that holistic view of the entire business, including all processes, departments, and connections. But there's more that will actually make sure that you have this future stability with OCPM. Because with OCPM, we actually can provide and create a layer on top of your business that will allow you to combine multiple companies, processes, and IT systems into one single model. And this is actually something that we've been doing right now. We as Apolix have a customer where we have created one OCPM model. We have created one standardized uniform model where we are implementing 5 businesses. So just imagine we have one mother company with 5 daughter companies, and those 5 daughter companies are from 5 very different industries. And I'm talking about manufacturing of beds to supplying of flower seeds, like 5 very different companies. What we see as well, though, is even though these 5 industries are different and the people within those industries are different, that the main processes, the main way they should do things can be uniformed, can be standardized. So what we've been doing is we have created one unified process model for these 5 companies. And underlaying in these companies, we also have connected 7 different systems, again, into one model. And with this one model, we can actually, instead of doing everything separate, we can uniformly eliminate unnecessary activities. We can therefore also uniformly standardize the whole process. We can analyze what is going wrong. We can benchmark the different companies, and we can therefore create one way of working instead of doing it all separate. But more importantly, right now we have a uniform way to actually optimize and automate these processes so that not only the 5 daughter companies are happy, but the mother company is also happy. Because in this case, it's very important that both are aligned. And with just this one single model where everyone fits in, we can actually achieve that. We can create this digital twin on top of their business, digital standardized twin, to make sure that they can achieve this. This also brings me to the next point of OCPM, which is the no dependency on systems. As said before, we can combine companies, we can combine processes into one model, but we can also combine IT systems into one model. Right now, in the data-driven world that we live in, every data-driven project, and if it has not come your way yet, I know it will come your way. Every data-driven project is going to require a data connection to your system. And that also means that for every data connection, you need to go through that whole loop again. People are going to ask you questions about, okay, what does this table mean? What does this column mean? How do I connect it? And for every data-driven project, you go through that whole loop again. Very time-consuming. I know it, and I know a lot of my customers that are right now in this meeting know it as well. Because having those data experts that actually know everything about the system, they're very limited. So to put them on every data project, that can be very time consuming. Right now with OCPM, we don't have that system dependency anymore. We can put everything again into one single model, and that single object-centric model is fully standardized. So instead of having, and I'm going to use some SAP terms here, instead of having ECPO-VBON, which I can see purchase order number. And then I also don't have people coming to me asking me, what does this table mean? What does this column mean? Because everything is standardized and mapped. And more importantly, it's properly documented as well. Let me actually also make this more concrete with an example. How many people, and I want to see if everyone can actually raise their hand, how many people deal with an audit? The auditors, you know, that come, they have to check everything. Yeah, I think quite some people deal with audits. Now let me ask you this question. How many people like to deal with the audit? Oh, I see one hand up. I know that is an auditor, so we're going to ignore that one. But exactly, like people, we know that the audit, it's necessary because everything needs to be audited to make sure that everything is consistent, but it's also very time consuming, not only for you, but also for the audit department themselves. They need to extract the data. Then it's extracted. You have this dump of data with columns and tables from the raw system. Well, let me tell you, not every raw system has intuitive columns. So then it needs to be scoped. It needs to be validated. For everyone who has actually worked with data validation, they know how many iterations go about that. And after everything has been validated, it needs to be mapped. Because we don't want to see some random numbers and some random letters. We actually want to see columns such as invoice, invoice value, etc. This whole process takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time for the audit to actually understand what's happening, to understand where the data is. But it also takes a lot of effort for you, because you need to make that time to explain it to them. You need to make that time to extract the data again. And you need to make that time to sit next to them and actually one by one map the data and see what's happening. Right now with OCPM, we have real-time data in Celonis. We have fully validated that model. So we have a full validation sign-off. And because OCPM is standardized and just a layer on top of everything, we have that standardized mapping. So instead of someone from audit actually coming to you and actually saying like, hey, I have this raw dump of data. What do I do with it? How do I interpret it? You can just provide them your OCPM model with like, okay, this is how my invoice, this is the information that is in my invoices. And instead of having all these random numbers and letters, you see invoice, invoice value, vendor, etc., etc. And you can provide them that. I don't want to, it's in the ideal world, it would be perfect. I do want to note here, of course, there's going to be validation needed because we need to build that trust. Of course, there are still going to be questions because not everything is as intuitive as we like it to be. But what we also know is how better the internal control of a company, how lower the costs are going to be for the external audit, but also for you internally. Because instead of spending the time sitting next to someone explaining everything, you can spend the time on something else. You can provide them your OCPM model, your standardized, fully mapped OCPM model, and they can work from that. A lot of money and time is being spent in understanding data, in understanding systems and understanding the connection between systems. And because OCPM is that layer on top of your business and provides all those connections, we are already taking one hurdle away there. This also actually brings me to the last point of today, which is the continuous improvement that we can deliver right now with OCPM. With your OCPM model in Celonis, you have one source of truth for all your improvement opportunities. And it can be achieved via independent and streamlined apps. So let me ask you another question. Who here is familiar with the view that we see, the action view? I see Andras indeed putting his hands up. I see a lot of other people putting their hands up. What we see here, for the people who don't know, is an out-of-the-box app by Celonis, plug and play, for the duplicate checker. The name is already very intuitive, but what this app does for you is it detects all your duplicates in your system and makes sure that you don't pay them double, because duplicate payments is not something that every company wants, but trust me, it's something that happens across all companies. So this app is actually already very interactive. It detects it for you and it allows you to immediately solve it by blocking certain invoices and actually solving them therefore. But there's one big dependency. Who of you are working with SAP? Well, I want to say lucky you, but I know it's not that lucky because I also know the migration is coming up soon. But for Celonis, lucky you, because for you to actually install this app, you need to have SAP, meaning that all of you who didn't put their hands up, very sorry to tell you, but you cannot have this app. You cannot install it because it will not work for your system. This big dependency is right now what we see with traditional process mining. The Celonis apps for traditional process mining have to be system dependent because nothing is standardized. Everything is based on your source system and on the raw data within your source system. Right now, we see indeed that for this view to work, we are just inputting all the raw data from SAP. BKPF, yeah, something related to invoices, LFA1, something related to vendors. But even I am often lost when I look at these names and look at these tables. Right now with the object-centric view, we are mapping everything. We're making sure that instead of looking at these raw table names, we're looking at standardized uniform names. So instead of inputting a BKPF table, I am actually inputting a standardized invoice table. Instead of inputting, I don't even know what the name was, but something in the SAP would relate to vendors, I am inputting one table, which is called vendor, or every information for my vendors in there. And for you, it's not important that you have a specific system. No, for you, it's only important that you have the information. And right now in this world, in this data-driven world, we know every company stores a lot of information, especially this type of information. So also for you with OCPM, these apps are possible. The duplicate checker is just one app of them. It's an amazing app. We have realized a lot of value already with the duplicate checker, but there are a bazillion apps more that you can then just plug and play the moment you install them, just by making sure that you have OCPM enabled for you, just by making sure that you have that standardized uniform mapping of your business. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening to this webinar. If you're already busy with process mining and you're doubting to switch, I want to motivate you to contact me. My contact details are in the mail that you've received. My slide is not fully working right now, so that's a shame, but the contact information of the founders of Apolix are also on the slide. So if you give me a moment, I'll quickly refresh so that you can actually see their contact information. But we're more than happy to be in contact to you to talk about the switch to OCPM. Is it applicable to you, and what do you need to actually switch it? If you've not yet started with OCPM and you want to talk, or with process mining at all, and you want to talk about if it's applicable to you and what kind of form of process mining is applicable for you, also there we're more than happy to have those conversations with you. So please use us, and I want to motivate you to be in contact with us, which right now leaves it for questions. I'm not sure if everyone sees the question, so I'm gonna quickly read it out loud. I know that through case-centric, you're able to deep dive into each process since you're only focusing on one. By connecting multiple processes together through OCPM, are you still able to generate the same valuable information that you can get in a case-centric process mining? Yes, definitely. Even better. So the question is, can you get the same type of information with OCPM that you get with case-centric process mining? I can do you one better. With OCPM, you can actually get more information. With case-centric, because we're only looking from one perspective, we are only limiting ourselves from one point of view. We're only limiting ourselves, and therefore also limiting our value creations. With OCPM, due to the fact that we're connecting everything, we can get that same information of the process, plus a little bit of extra, because besides the information that we see within the process, we also get the information of the influences of that process on everything outside of that. Any other questions? In that case, let me in the meantime quickly refresh my screen so that we actually see the contact information, because I do want to motivate you to actually look at this. One second. I don't know what exactly is happening. So I'll do it a little bit different. But let me first go back to the questions. Hugo, I see that you said in terms of the duration of a project. I think you were still busy with actually finalizing your question. Feel free to also unmute yourself if you want to ask a question.
Okay, so I'll follow up on the question, Quinty. I made this observation. I'm Hugo, by the way, from Portugal. I've been working with Celonis for a couple of years now, and my question for you is, when you think of non-standard industries, like for example banking, where you have millions of sources that you have to put up together, so you can make sense of a process. What do you think with OCPM is reasonable to make like an end-to-end implementation for OCPM?
That's a very good question. In this case, I would say it really depends on the complexity. Right now, for example, we're also working on creating an OCPM model for claims management. And for that, we are first really assessing the complexity of how big do you want your scope to be. I will always say, let's take at least 3 months to understand the size of the project, understand the size of the process, and understand also the size of the value that you want to achieve. And based on that, make a detailed timeline of, okay, what are we going to do in each sprint? But in general, I really want to suggest here to work in an agile way of working, because every process is different. Even if you look at banking, within banking and different companies, it will differ how much you want to see and how much you can actually see.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions still?
That means you were great, Quinty. So yeah.
Thank you so much. So in this case, I'm really trying here to share my slides in a way that it actually shows contact information. Unfortunately, my laptop does not want to work with me, so very sad about that. I'll try to figure out maybe a different way to quickly do this. In this case, if there are no more other questions, thank you so much. Oh, sorry. I see some questions popping up. My laptop is a little bit slow. What is the future of OCPM? So the future of OCPM right now is that we are actually creating a vision where we have a stability via one digital platform. So right now we know that we have a lot of those data-driven projects. We have a lot of possibilities to actually do something with our data. But what we also see is that it's because of all those different projects, it's being spread all over different systems, different platforms again. While we want to have it uniform, we want to have it standardized, and we want to have one source of truth where we can actually get our information from and base our decisions on. And with OCPM, we can get this uniform standardized platform that is easily interpretable for everyone, also more easily digitally wise installable for everyone. And that is the future of OCPM, that one platform that's going to be your source of truth. Andras actually made a great suggestion as well. I will indeed send the contact details of everyone in here in the screenshot as a screenshot. And for everyone who joined today, thank you so much. I'll make sure that at the end you will get the recording, and I will also send you the PowerPoint. And in that PowerPoint, the contact details are there as well. So in this case, like I said before, are you already busy with process mining and you want to switch? Contact us. We can have a coffee. We can talk about our day, talk about how everything is connected. If you haven't started with process mining yet, still feel free to contact us and to see what kind of form of process mining is a good fit for you. because even though the traditional way limits, it's still a very good way to start with process mining to get familiar with the view. And then we can always move it to OCPM the moment we want to look at the bigger picture. All right, thank you all so much. And then you will still receive a message from me with all the information.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you
the
very
best.
much for the presentation. I want
Thank
to
you.
congratulate you because I'm quite new to this concept, but you made them really simple to be understood. So congratulations for it.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy that it was indeed followable because it is technically very difficult. So I'm happy that everyone could follow it.
Okay, thank you, Quinty. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.